Yes, as unfortunate as it might be, space will be faked, as long as space is seen as real. But reality is only real if you do not allow it to be faked. So let's discuss reality versus what they fake and simply call real. First, let's listen to author William Burroughs. He wrote the book called The New Ocean, the story of the first space age, where he starts off by telling us that science fiction created the space age. The speech is from 1998. Let's listen in.
One of the things that runs through the entire history of the space age and before the space age, and this is one of the leitmotifs that also run through the book, is the direct relation between science and science fiction. You're not at this too long when you don't come to understand that it's the science fiction people, the SF people, as one of my friends calls them, who laid the blueprint for the people who actually built the rockets and planned out the programs. And I did a fair amount of thinking about that throughout the entire process. Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, who was the great Russian rocketeer and the father of rocketry, and who we never heard about during the Cold War for reasons that will not mystify you. Tsiolkovsky and Hermann Oberth, the German, the father of rocketry there, and our own Robert Goddard, all read Jules Verne. They all read From the Earth to the Moon, and they all had, if you'll pardon the expression, had their fires lit by that wonderful voyage. They all read H.G. Wells, The War of the Worlds, and so on. These people were energized and captivated by science fiction. I started the book off, in fact, going back to Daedalus, because I had to come to grips with why exactly do we do this?
Why exactly do we do this? And who is so hell-bent on space travel? I mean, why do these people want off this planet so bad?
There are cynical answers, and they're relevant. One is that corporations in aerospace want to make a lot of money. Another is a lot of generals on both sides wanted to get the high ground for a supposed advantage, whatever that meant, and we're still not sure we know. But beneath that, there were the dreamers, there were the sci-fi people, there were the people who wanted to go for what reason? This is what I had to try to come to grips with, and when I went back to Daedalus, when I went back to Greek mythology, it occurred to me that one of the reasons is transcendence. I came to realize in the course of researching the book that what I was dealing with was not in reality, was not hard-nosed businessmen who were trying to keep their stocks up and generals who were trying to one-up the enemy. What I was dealing with was members of a religion. That's exactly what this undertaking is. Religion. What else to call people, I'm talking about serious engineers who design colonies on Mars and interstellar missions that they know they will never live to see. Religion. What else to call them but members of a religion as people in the Middle Ages started to build cathedrals they knew they would never see finished. Religion. And what is the trait that has propelled this all of these years? I remember being at the annual meeting of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which I go to every year, but several years ago, the magazine Omni was giving out buckets full of free buttons. And the button they were giving out that year said, "The meek shall inherit the earth. The rest of us are going to the stars." And I believe that there are people around everywhere who truly believe that, and they are the ones who fuel, if you'll pardon the expression, who fuel this entire undertaking. In terms of it being a PR ploy by NASA, the answer is yes, and the answer is NASA is unexcelled at doing PR. I don't mean that, however, in a pejorative way. As I explained in Florida, Janet Reno does PR, Ken Starr does PR, the Clinton White House does PR, the Marlboro Man does PR, and Slobodan Milosevic does PR. Why shouldn't the space agency? they've got something to sell, and they're trying to sell it. And so is the Planetary Society, Bruce Murray's, and the late Carl Sagan Society in Pasadena. These folks are a force. They're out there, and the first thing you do is say, well, it's pipe dreams. On the other hand, as Sandy Kramer, who lives right here in Maryland, who was involved in a lot of the space program for Lockheed, likes to say, the money is spent on Earth. It isn't spent in outer space. And the people who are in these organizations, like the Mars people, like the Planetary Society, are the cutting edge of everybody who comes after them. You can't do any of this stuff unless you dream about it. And they're doing the dreaming.
Science fiction that became scientific fact, science dreamers that became the space travelers. Look no further than the Jules Verne book From the Earth to the Moon, written in 1865, 100 years before NASA would convince the world that they did the same. It came so close to actual events, you'd swear either Jules Verne could see the future, or NASA built the mission around the book. You can decide that for yourself, which one seems more likely. Verne predicted the moon landing would be by the Americans. Verne sent 3 humans on a flight around the moon in December, and in 1968, NASA did the same, in December. Verne sent them on a Columbiad, which took off from Tampa, Florida, about 120 miles from where NASA would eventually launch from. Verne wrote of a competition between Florida and Texas to be the launch facility, which happened in real life, and Verne's astronauts were picked up by a U.S. Navy vessel that witnessed the splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. And of course we know the Apollo astronauts were picked up in the Pacific Ocean by the U.S. aircraft carrier Yorktown. The uncanny similarities don't end there, but what is obvious is science fiction became science fact. In 1945, Arthur C. Clarke published his geostationary satellite in Wireless World magazine as a letter to the editor, and it wasn't even considered seriously. However, in less than 15 years, NASA was making science fiction science fact. It was the era of the satellite. Easily one of the most debated topics in this search for truth about where we live is the idea of the satellite. A thought experiment by Newton and a letter to the editor by Clarke, and now over 6 billion people believe in something we don't really even have a need for. So let's go to a 1970 NASA film called Space Down to Earth to learn all about these orbiting works of genius and funny sounds.
These are sounds of our times. Called telemetry, it is the way satellites orbiting in space report to controllers on Earth. Each spacecraft has its own signature, a unique tone. Engineers call it data. You may see it later as a weather report or a television picture from around the world. Space down to Earth with application satellites. What they are, what they're doing for you now, and what will be happening in the decade of the 70s.
Now, if for some reason you thought those were fake, or the beeps and beebles were added, nope, those are all authentic. And if you think that these satellites look fake as can be, and that these guys are all actors, well, me too.
Tyros, Television Infrared Operational Satellite. Over the past 10 years, 20 of these hatbox-shaped satellites have been successfully launched for use by NASA and the Weather Bureau. The television eyes of Tyros scan the entire globe daily, reporting on cloud cover and warning of major storms. Since the first operational weather satellites started clicking off pictures, roughly 600 severe storms have been detected, followed, and predictions made about their course. A recent satellite in the Tyros series does the work of 2 spacecraft. Carrying twice as many cameras, it's capable of discerning cloud formations as small as 2 miles across.
Now, I'm sure everyone will agree that those last few satellites were just pretty funny. Hilarious, actually. and spinning like crazy, covered with their gold tinfoil. That is some high-tech stuff right there. And here, if anyone actually believes that what we're looking at is the sun, well, I have to ask you how. I have to ask how anyone can believe that that is the sun, unless they have just chosen to base their facts, base their beliefs on whatever NASA says. In which case, well, they've given up their right to consider evidence and to make their own conclusion. And that's their opinion, that's their prerogative, but I don't see how anybody can think that that's real. I mean, this one here clearly looks like it's outside of a Walmart as part of a child's ride. The whole thing is just, look at that one. I mean, does anyone think that's real? Do you really think that that is in space communicating with the ground? I mean, that right there is protected from micrometeorites, solar wind, supplying our communications from space in orbit. Sure.
Over 50 countries are now using inexpensive automatic picture readout equipment to view daily weather patterns over their own territory. These same countries also benefit from cloud picture mosaics, routinely made available by the Weather Bureau to Europe, Asia, Australia, and North and South America. The weather mosaic is built up from individual weather photos and processed by computer. It is then retransmitted by a satellite.
And so lucky us, by 1970, we had for the first time taken some satellite imagery of the Earth, actual images, right? But wait a second. That's not where South America goes. Globe believers tell me that we know where the continents are, and we know their shape and size, and if we check on this, let's check a NASA image here, because I'm confused. They're both NASA images, right? Alright, so first I went to the Discover Epic camera, and clearly South America is to the right of Florida, all of it. Here we're looking at a false color image, and again, South America is to the right of Florida. Alright, well let's try a different NASA image, and clearly here we can see that all of South America is to the right of Florida. So we'll bring back that 1970s image actually taken from a satellite, and there you go. This does raise the question of which one exactly is a picture if we've been told that both are pictures. Granted, they are strips and they have to be put together, but you'd think that we'd get the location of continents correct, right? So which one's the picture, 1970 or the Epic camera? Did South America magically move? Continental drift? We can also verify this by checking the Gale Peters and see that yes, South America seems to be to the right of Florida, and we can also check the Mercator and we get the same thing. So what's going on here? Let's look at a few other things. Let's take a look at Spain. We can see that above Africa there, that something is clearly wrong with the water and with the size of Spain itself. Let's look over at Lake Hudson on the left side at the top and see that that is way different. One of those is clearly not a photo. Also, and the worst one I've seen so far, if you just take a look at Mexico and Baja and down towards South America there, you'll see that I overlaid something from the Discover satellite on top of the 1970s map, and you'll see there is a huge discrepancy. And no matter what I tried to do, when I tried to make sure that Baja California and Florida were matched the same size, look at the discrepancy inside the red circle. Something's wrong here. I think we're being lied to.
Communications. Some of the greatest strides in putting space to work have taken place in this field. In 1960, Americans made 100 billion telephone calls. In 1969, nearly 200 billion were made. New uses are continually being found for telecommunications.
Oh boy, not this one. So now phone conversations are using satellites in 1970. Sure they are. This was our chance to call out these guys for the fraud that they had been perpetrating, and granted, nobody would have ever expected them to be just basically pulling off a grand deception, but this was our chance and still is our chance to point out this stuff is faker than fake. This is just another space-age lie. Throughout the 1800s, many were working on the idea of the telephone, and then from 1900 to 1920, this included many of the firsts, like the first international call, the first transcontinental call, and the transcontinental was done via wires across the United States, and across the Atlantic Ocean it was done through radio waves to transmit voice. Now this would raise too many questions about the shape of the Earth, and radio was not perfect and was very variable. So they ran the TAT1 cables in 1955, and then in 1988 switched to fiber optic. This is how all ground-based telephone works. For short distances, we can use cell phones, which connect with a tower close to you, and then use the same ground-based cables as landlines do. Nothing fancy. And for people who think that these cell phones are equipped with G.P.S. and talk to satellites, well, you're even wrong there. Your iPhone cannot send a signal 22,000 miles. Sorry. Even based on current science, your cell phone only receives a signal, and it does not send one back. Now, you can believe that that signal comes from space all you want. That's up to you. If you believe that, though, then you believe that satellites have synchronized clocks and shoot signals at the speed of light through ever-changing and varying atmospheric conditions, but are perfect. Does that sound crazy? Well, indeed it is. What is actually used is something called trilateration, and this can be easily achieved via a 2D system or a 3D system using circles or spheres. Let me show you on a 2D system. So let's say we've got these three cell towers, cell tower A, B, and C. And all we need to do first is to measure your distance from tower A. So once we have that, we know that you basically exist somewhere on this circle, since you are a radius distance away from A. But where exactly are you on that circle? So we then measure your distance from tower B, and when we have that distance, we now know that you're at one of two spots. And lastly, we measure your distance from tower C. And boom, you have the only one possible location, and that's where you are. Now, does that sound more realistic, or would you like to change these towers to magical boxes in orbit, who have synchronized clocks and take relativity and Earth's spin into account? They send data at the speed of light, which is supposed to be in a vacuum, not the atmosphere of Earth, and then using your distance from each satellite, you compute your location exactly, because from 22,000 miles away, what we'd have to do first is have those clocks synchronized exactly, and then send signals, and then multiply the time it takes for that signal to get to you by the speed of light, and ta-da, you have your distance. Truth be told, in my opinion, no one uses satellites. It's a fairy tale told by the elite to the unsuspecting slaves. If we are using any kind of satellites, we are using high-altitude balloons. So let's hear about them first. How about the first high-altitude balloon? This would be known as Echo 1.
We are in the midst of a global communications explosion. Helping meet this demand are communications satellites. First transmission via Echo satellite. By bouncing radio waves off its shiny surface, it made possible long-distance telephone conversations and the transmission of photographs and music. Other communication satellites followed. Telstar, Relay, Syncom. Each a research step leading to commercial spacecraft capable of handling satellite communications.
Sorry, I'm not buying it. I mean, come on. Phone communications first with satellites, and now we're talking about Echo 1. I mean, so get this. Echo 1 was a 100-foot spherical balloon that basically was launched and put up into orbit 1,000 miles from Earth. Okay, the ISS is only 250 miles from Earth, but this balloon was 1,000 miles. So one of two things basically is true. Number one, Echo 1 was real, in which case all of our satellites are just balloons that are bouncing signals. Or number two, Echo 1 was just another NASA lie. I'll let you decide that for yourself. All right, and this is just a short little article from the Wikipedia for Echo 1, and it says basically the balloon satellite functioned as a reflector, not as a transceiver. So after it was placed into low Earth orbit, a signal could be sent to it, reflected by its surface, and returned to Earth. So something would be very easily for them to do now with your DirecTV. Then comes this very interesting line. To keep the sphere, this is according to NASA, by the way, to keep the sphere inflated in spite of meteorite punctures and skin permeability, a makeup gas system using evaporating liquid or crystals of a subliming solid were incorporated inside the satellite. Totally believable, because everything NASA says, people have to agree with. Don't you dare question it. And it talks about the first attempt and then the second attempt. It's basically a big joke. It was supposed to even come down much sooner than it did, according to them. It says Echo 1 was originally loosely estimated to survive until around its fourth dip into the atmosphere in July of 1963, but possibly until 1964 or beyond. But it ended up living much longer than the three estimates, and it was not until May 24th of 1968 that it finally returned into Earth's atmosphere, burning up. These people have literally gone crazy because we let them say whatever they want with immunity. They can just get away with anything. Anything they say, people buy. It's ridiculous. Watch this next video and tell me if you think it's real. Also watch towards the end. I'll probably rewind it and show it twice. But watch the barge come out of nowhere. Here goes. SpaceX, by the way, is fake X. Alright, so watch again here as I slowed it down. Watch underneath the fin on the left. It just doesn't make sense if you rewind it and watch it again, which we'll do. Let's watch it one more time. Alright, one more time. Watch underneath the left fin. All of a sudden you're going to see the barge appear and move into place. Sure. But, of course, it's just one of those things. They get away with whatever they want to say. Now, moving on. I've said before, people know my opinion, that SpaceX is fake X, and they're faking it just as much as Daddy NASA. But let's just think about this logically for a second. The Falcon 9 first stage is 36,000 pounds dry, and it's carrying, at the time of separation from the second stage, 64,000 pounds of propellant. It's a total of 100,000 pounds. A, Toyota Camry is 3,500 pounds. So if we really wanted to understand what's going on here, we would have to stack some Camrys. Now, I put the number at 15, because I feel if we stack 15, we're at around 51,000, which is probably what it's at as it's getting closer to the ground. Here's the even bigger problem for me. If we went to the top of the Empire State Building, let's say, and we dropped a bundle of 15 cars, can you imagine what kind of thrust would have to be thrown in order to stop that from hitting the ground? I'm sure they do the mathematical equations on it, but I can tell you one thing, it's not reality. That's all I got to say about that. So yeah, when we stack 15 cars at 52,000 pounds, imagine dropping those bundle of cars and somehow being able to shoot something out, or it's a rocket engine, so it's combusting basically inside the rocket, and enough is being propelled from it to hold 36,000 pounds at minimum from hitting the ground? I don't think so, Tim. And now the point of this video. The point of this video is that NASA should have been stopped long ago. They've been faking satellites and faking images and faking nonsense the whole time. And it was our time to stop them then. Because what has happened is it's almost gotten too late. So we still can point out the things of old, but what's happening to the present and what's going to happen in the future, reality is becoming indiscernible from augmented reality. Also, some people just aren't capable of understanding what deception means or how easy it is to fool them. Hate to bring this up again, because I've put this guy on a back burner as a fanboy or a sellout or one of the above or both of the above. And that person is Jarrah White, who did good work on the moon landings, and his good work stopped there because he believes in everything else space travel. He's okay with NASA lying to his face about going to the moon, but he doesn't question anything else. Doesn't question the size of Saturn, doesn't question because he thinks those pictures are real. The pictures of Pluto are real. The moon landing was fake. Does that make any sense to you? I mean, to honestly think that the moon landing photos are faked and the Pluto images are real, then I would guess that your job must be a photo forensics expert. Because otherwise, I don't understand how you make that determination. For me, NASA will never, ever get a free pass. Never. It just will not happen for them, from me. To think that they faked the moon landings, but now have a rover that was flown to Mars and dropped from a craft with a parachute, and Adam Steltzner celebrating in the control room, looking for his good friend Miguel San Martino, if he's here. If they've earned something, they've earned it. They certainly have not earned the right to say that those images are from Pluto. They can't turn around and take an image of the Earth. There's a problem there. unless we had independent secondary verification, which we will never have, because anybody going to space will have to go through NASA. It's the way it is, and it will be that way until we get rid of NASA. Some people just don't understand how easy it would be for us to be fooled. An example of that is Gem Panda. Gem Panda did a recent video called Why I Have 75 Sock Puppet Accounts. Oh, wait. Nope, that's the wrong video. The video is called How I Know We Went to the Moon. It's 2 hours long, and I can sum it up in 4 words. Because I trust men. It doesn't matter that we can't do it today. It doesn't matter that it was impossible with the technology then. It doesn't matter that they lost the tapes or that all the telemetry is gone. It doesn't even matter that these are the videotapes of the Earth from the trip to the moon on Apollo 8. And if you can watch this and say these are real, then you simply believe in the words of men and what NASA tells you to believe. Because anyone with their own brain and their own mind can watch this and come to the right conclusion. Go ahead and watch.
Okay. We're receiving. We got a picture. We're just not seeing the video. We got a picture as far as sync and all that. Just not in the field of view. Okay. Okay, we're just picking it up at 3 o'clock on our screen. Okay. It's moving up toward 1 o'clock and in toward the center. Keep it going in that direction. Okay. It's looking better. You're holding up about 1 to 2 o'clock. Looking better. Give us a little more in that same direction. You're down at 3 o'clock now. We see about half of what you see. Too much. It's disappearing at our 5 o'clock.
Put it this way. Even Jera White knows this is fake. Even Jera White.
Okay, we have it.
What you're seeing, Mike, is Houston, what you're seeing is the Western Hemisphere. Looking, the top is the North Pole. In the center, just lower to the center, is South America. All the way down to Cape Horn. I can see Baja, California, and the southwestern part of the United States. There's a big pond cloud bank going northeast. Covers a lot of the Gulf of Mexico, going up to the eastern part of the United States.
All right, so here we are finishing off with some more Apollo 8 fraud footage. Go ahead and watch that and enjoy it. And Gem Panda, or whatever sock puppet account you're going by today, you made your video. Congrats on your trust in NASA. We're all very proud of you. I'm assuming your next video will be Lee Harvey Oswald, Lone Gunman. That one should be really good, really riveting. Looking forward to that one. Followed by 9/11 jet fuel causes a 110-story building to become dust. I can't wait to see that one. It's going to be full of evidence and good research. And then you'll probably do one to finish it off. Maybe Sandy Hook, 112-pound maniac kills mother and children at a school, which I think will be just an epic video. So looking forward to that, and thank you for considering all the evidence before you do your videos. That's exactly what I want to see from good researchers. Why I can't get this through to people, I'll never understand, but you can't go to the sources and use that as your only research. Do you not see that a deception is a deception because it deceives you? Not because they tell you that they're faking space travel. That wouldn't be a very good deception. So here we're looking at the AR kit from Apple, and this technology, believe it or not, is available on your cell phone. So is augmented reality and virtual reality. All these things are coming at a fast pace, and this is why it's kind of now or never as far as NASA and space travel and SpaceX and JAXA and Roscosmos and all these guys go, because as long as you allow your reality to be faked, then they will continue to fake reality. And it will just get worse and worse and even harder for us to decipher what is real and what isn't. The time is now to stand up and make a stink and make them prove they're doing what they say they're doing. Why do we not have a 24/7 video camera on the Earth from the orbiting spacecraft if you think we have satellites that can beam signals down to anywhere? What is the possible excuse for shutting off the live feed every 30 minutes? Go ahead and make up every excuse you want. It's bullshit. It's 2017. Okay? Why do we not have pictures of stars in space? Make all the excuses you want. Shutter speed, aperture, focal length, exposure, Like I don't have a $300 camera in my house right now that can do a better job than NASA can. Why don't we have a camera on the moon for this upcoming lunar eclipse showing us as the Earth gets in the way of the sun? Where's that camera? Where's the videos and the pictures of Earth? But all you guys are too smart. Can't possibly be fooled, right? Can't be fooled at all. Let's finish it off with some AR kit showing us a Falcon 9 landing in a pool.
LZ-1, the Falcon has landed. Landing operators moving to procedure 11.100, section 3 on LZ-1 VNet, recovery net. Repeat, Falcon.
I don't know about you guys, I saw no cuts at all. Jarrah? Must have been real, right? You got it. Stay vigilant, guys. Make them prove what they are telling us is true, because we're at a time where we will no longer be able to tell. It's right around the corner. In fact, it's here, right? It's on your iPhone. So let's finish off with another AR kit, Augmented Reality Portal. You can check out this, and if you think that they can't fake space and spacewalks and planets and moon landings and Mars rovers and galaxies and all the nonsense that they've been faking for years, they are at the point in time that they wanted to get to, where technology has caught up and we can no longer decipher what is real. Yet all we need to do is look at the past 50 years and you can tell that NASA and SpaceX and Roscosmos and JAXA, it's all a scam. It's all a big lie, and all you got to do is research it. Just look for the evidence, and I don't mean what they hand you. If something is real, then it's real, and it will prove itself. Yet all this stuff is nothing more than word salad, numbers on paper, and men who tell you it's true. So guys, I appreciate you watching another one of my videos. Be kind to each other, and don't lie to each other. And remember to open your mind, because there's truth inside. Until next time, guys, this has been Jarrahism. Peace!